Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our spoiler-free review for Netflix's Stranger Things Season 4, Part 1.
Suffering is almost at an end.
What's up, mouth breathers? My name is Nate, and this is our spoiler-free review for Netflix's Stranger Things Season 4, Part 1. As always, special thanks to our friends at Netflix Canada for getting these episodes early for review. Now, before we get started, if you're joining us for the first time, we are Geekcentric, a podcast focusing on the world of TV, movies, games, toys, and collectibles, and all things geek-centric. Now, I couldn't take on a level 36 Dark Wizard all by myself. So joining me for this campaign, straight from the Upside Down, we've got a level 20 High Elf Paladin who's neutral lawful with a hankering for some Eggo waffle. He's J-Law the Brave.
Ooh, I like that.
J-Law the Brave. Would you consider yourself brave in most of these situations?
Probably not. I'd probably go apeshit like Steve in any of these situations. So.
That sounds good. And joining us straight out of the gate in my bathroom, he's a level 15 half-orc barbarian with a tendency to enjoy the odd smelly plant from time to time. He's Kevin the Demigorgon Crusher Hudson.
Pass the Dutchie on the left-hand side. Let's go, boys.
How's it going, guys? You guys having a good time with in the Upside Down and all the adventures that we've been watching this past? How many hours is this?
I think it hit about close to 9 hours for 7 episodes.
It's so
that
good.
Should be illegal.
Yeah, but I'm so glad it's not. And in case you guys are wondering, my D&D character, I'm a level 20 bard whose strongest attribute is feeling too much.
I think that's spot on.
Right? Before we're pulled into our deepest nightmares, let me start by giving a little background. As you know, guys, get this. It's been 2 years and 11 months that we last saw the gang infiltrate the Starcourt Mall in Season 3 in the finale. But for Eleven and her friends, it's been 6 months since the Battle of Starcourt, which brought terror and destruction to Hawkins. Struggling with the aftermath, our group of friends are separated for the first time, and navigating the complexities of high school hasn't made things any easier. In this most vulnerable time, a new and horrifying supernatural threat surfaces, presenting a gruesome mystery that, if solved, might finally put an end to the horrors of the Upside Down. Season 4 is going to be in 2 parts, with Part 1, which we're reviewing right now, episodes 1 to 7 being released on May 27th, and Part 2, episodes 8 and 9, out on July 1st. Stranger Things is created by the Duffer Brothers and stars Winona Ryder, David Harbour, Millie Bobby Brown, Finn Wolfhard, Gaten Matarazzo, Caleb McLaughlin, Noah Schnapp, Sadie Sink, Natalia Dyer, Charlie Heaton, Joe Keery, Maya Hawk, Priya Ferguson, Brett Gelman, Cara Buono, and Matthew Modine. So guys, this is such a wild ride, and I think I can speak for all of us when I say we weren't necessarily expecting to get this many episodes, especially at this length. Before we dive into what we like or maybe we didn't enjoy about these 7 episodes, I want to start with how long it's taken to get here. Was it worth the wait? And did it throw you off at all, jumping in almost 3 years later?
Yeah, I cannot believe it's been almost 3 years since we turned around and looked at what we see. That it doesn't feel like it's been that long. And yet I did find myself at certain points through these first episodes going, wait a minute, what set up that again? And why did they get to where they are? I mean, but the show does a pretty darn good job, even without maybe watching some of the great YouTube videos that do, service as catch-ups. I think the show does a pretty good job of refreshing your memory as to where these characters were, where we left them, and why they are sort of separated as they are as the season begins.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the recaps that they have on Netflix for 1, 2, and 3 that are there, I watched those. Those were enough to really kind of give me a primer for getting into 4. That being said, there were references that did kind of throw me for a loop where I was like, wait, did that happen in 2 or 3? So it was a bit of trying to piece it all together as we kind of get back into it, but it was fun, man. Like, I don't know, like after the first episode, I was hooked. I was like, okay, here we go.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a lot of people's the way they enjoy the show. Obviously, all the episodes, or sorry, at least these 7 episodes are going to be dropped all at once. And it's honestly, if this is how long it's going to take to get to even the next season of this show, I'm kind of okay with it if the quality of the show is like this. I think it's absolutely worth the wait. And I think if it's just as good as this or better, when we get that final season, it'll be worth it as well. And I gotta say, like, the first episode of this, I think was maybe my favorite episode of all of Stranger Things. I think it's perfect, and I think, you guys mentioned the idea of watching a recap, or even some people have talked to me like, should I watch the first 3 seasons again? I wasn't lost at all, and I remember, Justin, I was telling you, it felt like it was just like a wonderful 80s movie when we got that first episode, and I was just satisfied enough with that. But I'm glad we got even more, with even more on the way. But yeah, man, I don't think I was lost at all, and I think the show, it just sort of felt like I was just coming back, seeing some old friends again.
Absolutely. And even though it's been 3 years, you're right back with the gang, and you feel like you know these characters, and it's like seeing an old friend that you haven't seen for a while. It doesn't take long to just sort of get right back into it. But the weird thing is, seeing these actors in 2022, but seeing them on the show, which was filmed several years ago, I believe. And they've aged in the real world, but not as much on the show. Yeah. And I think with COVID and everything, things obviously got halted and delayed and pushed back. And so that took a little bit of getting used to. You see Millie Bobby Brown on a red carpet these days, and that's a full-grown woman, basically. You know what I mean? She looks significantly, and I wonder how much they are trying to sort of de-age her on the show, especially in maybe a flashback sequence or what have you. But that threw me for a loop more than anything. But no, it was they did a great job of getting us back in, and I would agree with you that first episode is probably my favorite Stranger Things episode to date. And it's weird because the first episode and then episode 7, or the final episode of part 1 here, were the 2 strongest episodes, and it's almost like a slightly declining dip in the middle. I think episode 7 is great because everything pays off so well by the end of that really long journey, but it might have taken a bit long to get there. It was, and we'll get more into that as we sort of
Kevin,
break down
I feel like
this show,
Kevin,
but
don't go towards that hole in the ground there, dude. You're going towards that hole in the ground. I don't want you to go there just yet before we dive into the upside down. Let's talk about what we enjoyed about these 7 episodes. And I want to kick things off here and just, again, I feel like especially with that first episode, the pacing of it, where and I mentioned this in my tweet, it introduces us to, all new stories, while still getting us invested in each branch of the story, and that it sort of branches off into these sort of 3 different groups. And I feel like normally we talk about how when you split up characters, that can really work against the show. But because the cast is so big with this show, it really works. And it's so rewarding to see these characters working together in ways that we've never seen.
Well, I even think it's actually 4 stories or 4 different groups, or mini adventures that they break off into, and I think the show does benefit because it makes it feel different than the previous 3 seasons. It wasn't just another example of the kids getting behind 11 and sort of facing the threat of the season and a little bit of rinse, wash, repeat. Not that the first 3 seasons were too repetitive of each other, but this was such a refreshing and new sort of spin for these characters that it did feel completely different than anything we've ever seen. And while I do think that splitting them up and taking as long as they did does have a bit of issues as we rolled along through the season, but again, we'll save that for later. But I totally agree that for the most part, it really did work to let all these characters, including some new characters that I'd love to discuss, really shine.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the idea of displacing all of the characters and showing that there's multiple branches of stories that are being told here that are going to be interwoven together. It kind of grows from like 3 to 4 to 5. It just kind of keeps branching and branching, and that's nice because rather than just staying so singular and focused, you are moving around a lot more and really kind of understanding each of the pieces. Now, with that, I think some stories just kind of get left to the side. It kind of felt a little bit off balance because there was one primary thing that they really wanted to hit home, and some of the other stuff I think just served as supplementary setup for maybe what will be more important in volume 2.
In terms of the pacing, I gotta just quickly jump in. I actually really do feel like it was balanced, because there was a lot of times where they would switch from one group to the other, and I thought at first that I was going to be like, oh, I'm going to want to see more of one than the other, and I didn't at any point in time. Like, I kind of felt like every time they made a switch to a new group, I was totally on board with it and totally okay with to see where it went. And I like the way that it was structured in this sort of newer way for the show.
See, but again, while most things are a positive, I mean, if you're going to take even just episodes 5, 6, and 7 here, which probably have a runtime of almost 4 hours just between these 3 episodes, you're seeing certain characters that we've been familiar with since day one for 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. You know, like, where is Will in those last 3 episodes? In what is it, season 1 again, and we're not seeing him? You know what I mean? Like, I feel bad for that actor. He keeps getting shortchanged. I hope he doesn't get paid by the line, you know, because he's not making nearly as much as everybody else.
But I also think, though, that what Volume 1 does really, really well is it's establishing, it's building to something. And I think that while you're absolutely right, Kevin, like, certain stories just kind of fell off towards the end of these last 3 of 7, but they're probably going to be more important in Volume 2. We should be seeing those stories kind of coming back, especially with how much story there appears to be left to tell in only 2 episodes. And I think that's probably going to total close to 4 hours of content or longer based on what they're saying. So
right. Well, speaking of those characters, I wanted to I think that was another thing that I really did love, and we kind of brought it up. It's like the returning cast is absolutely excellent this season, but in particular, like the new comers to the cast, and I wanted to actually shout out Joseph Quinn, who plays Eddie Munson.
The man.
Yeah,
fantastic.
He's the best new character on this show in years. He's terrific.
Such a good addition, and such a great sort of dynamic for sort of, you know,
Steve.
especially like his age, and he's kind of on that same level as Steve, but for different reasons.
Absolutely.
And he's just the moment you see him, he's got such an electrical like presence on screen. I loved him, and I'm stoked to see where he goes in the future.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that he's going to be the guy on the mountain rocking out with the guitar in the Upside Down world, because we haven't done that yet.
Right.
So.
That would be, dude, that's going to be excellent. Any other characters kind of stand out to you that we got in this season?
Well, yeah, as much as we're talking about Stranger Things, there was some comedic aspects, and those more comedic aspects came through some of the characters, like the new guy, Argyle.
Dude. Freaking rocks.
I think he's so cool, man.
Yeah.
I totally blaze with him.
Yeah.
And then there's also Brett Gelman's Murray. And how he's, you know, kind of featured more in throughout these episodes.
Yeah, he was great,
more integral and useful. And I just love that they allowed him to kind of take this sort of leader role in this situation and kind of be a hopper. I thought that was so lovely, and it was fun too. It was just an interesting take in this sort of adventure story.
I mean, given some of the 80s horror movies that they're clearly inspired by in this season, specifically, I'm just going to say it, Nightmare on Elm Street. I think having Robert Englund in the show, and, you know, I think in his limited time with the character of Victor, his scenes he's terrific in the brief doses that we get. Something tells me he's maybe in the show in other ways as well. I have a feeling he's voicing another character on the show. I think that's him, and it's very reminiscent of Nightmare on Elm Street in that sense. But yeah, I thought it was a great chance for an 80s icon to sort of shine a bit here.
I think with that too, the horror elements of this entire series just feel incredibly dialed up, like just cranked. Lot of really dark visuals, and there's so many layers of things that are happening here. There's like an action adventure story. There's this horror element to it that's just so twisted, and everything about it just feels so intentional, and it's comfortable for them. They're going there. They're having fun with it.
It also, yeah, it definitely feels more violent. I feel like there's sheer dread in the show, and I think it's really cool how, like, it's nice to see that the Duffer Brothers are respecting their audience in the sense that, like, they know that people who started watching in 2016 have grown up a little bit, and the show feels like it's grown up a little bit, not just because its characters have, but because, like, it literally just feels so, I guess, it feels more adult in that sense. It definitely still feels like a kid adventure, but it still has that the element of, like, kids should not watch this because it's really freaky.
Sure.
And I got me a bunch of times with some jump scares.
Yeah, like I know that the show has always been based in sci-fi and nods to horror, but I've never found it all that scary. It was watching this at like 1:30 in the morning alone in a dark room. I was a little freaked out for the first time ever watching this show. And so, yeah, I definitely think that they've matured along with their younger audiences, but this is not this is not the same show that a younger kid could have maybe watched in that first season and obviously been scared, but this is a whole new level of horror and it's very, very graphic, and yeah, it was intense.
You're absolutely right. Like, the horror elements are so much more dialed up that it doesn't feel appropriate for children and kids to kind of watch, right? Just because it probably is going to scare them. But did you guys get like more of like an Amblin, Spielbergian sort of vibe to some of the adventure qualities and the mystery qualities? There was like there's this one moment they're seeking help, and it felt very much like it was just kind of like an adventure sequence that you would have seen in a Spielberg style movie. So I don't know. I feel like they're trying to blend so many different other genres into this horror element that it feels, again, just intentional and purposeful to kind of remind people of the sort of nostalgic appreciation that Stranger Things has by embracing some of those adventure qualities that feels very inherently Goonies-esque, if you will. Right? So
yeah, I think even there was even a moment that actually reminded me of like Home Alone at one point. That's a really fun little sort of brief side moment for some of the characters. And I think a big part of that actually comes through with the music. And I think the music is really dynamic this season. We're getting everything from the traditional Stranger Things sort of synth noises from Kyle Dixon and Michael Stein, who are in the band Survive, which you should also check out. But they also add some string elements at certain points in time that do sound very, like you were mentioning, like that sort of Amblin sort of feeling kid adventure style, and they add them at the right moment, and I think it just adds to the dynamic of the show and really how you're feeling. And I also wanted to just shout out the sound design as well. The Foley for this show, where it's like punches. I was listening to this on AirPods Max with nice good headphones, and it was like booming on my ears when someone would like land a hit on someone, or even just like little things where it's like a cassette tape slapping into a Walkman. It just,
or a flashlight that skims the frame.
Yeah, it's
right?
so
like
punchy,
it
and
passes the frame.
Yeah, and it elevates every single sequence to kind of really draw you in. And I just think the sound in this show, both music and also just general, the sound is fantastic.
Yeah, the score is inherently built into Stranger Things as being part of its nostalgia, the way it weaves that synth style with these really nuanced horror elements. It's well crafted, and the score here shines, as you're saying, Nate, and as well just in terms of pairing it with the visuals that we get, right? So
yeah, and I also, we're talking about sound. I also want to talk about what I see, like the shout out to the DP and the cinematography team this season. I think the camera flows from shot to shot like effortlessly, and in really fun ways, whether it be spinning upside down or like the slow pans into darkness. Like, we're talking about adding tension this season. It gets really terrifying with the way that this show is shot. And I think, again, you can tell, like, yeah, this is them stepping up their game from the previous 3 seasons, even just by looking at it.
I think this has some of the best camera transitions from one world to the Upside Down. I think some of them were so smart and well crafted, and just it really does show that they've put $33 million in each episode. Jeez. And rightfully so, because this is setting up to be kind of like the swan song. The last before the finale, the penultimate, and I think that they're building towards something, and everything feels very intentional at this point.
Yeah, there's a hallway scene where you're spinning down the hallway, and it doesn't even make sense where the track for the camera would be. Like I couldn't even figure out how they did the shot. So yeah, they're going all in with this, and it's very, very clear.
And the VFX, I think that's a big part of it. I mean, I'm pretty sure the Duffer Brothers mentioned they shot like a bazillion VFX shots for this season, and I remember reading that, and I think you can totally tell the whole thing feels like an 8-hour movie, and I was really digging the quality of the show that we were getting. And I think the other thing to mention too, in terms of like the story, again, if you're worried that you're not gonna quite understand certain things, the most important things, they do this really good job of sort of adding in these like flashbacks almost at the right
montages,
but at like the right moment,
right time
to be able to say, hey, we're reminding
You've
you of what's
seen this.
Yeah, and that perfectly sets up what's coming up next in the show, and I think they do that masterfully without doing it too much. And then I think the other cool thing that I really loved was the aspect of the show, I think focusing a little bit more on, again, some more adult themes, whether it be like trauma or some really intense moments regarding like just things that some of these kids have grown up with in their lives. And obviously I can't say what it's in relation to, but there was a moment in these episodes that literally had me tearing up, sitting on the edge of my seat. And anytime a show can do that, for me, it's something special. Like I was ready to cry.
Isn't that every show, though?
No, Kevin, it's not.
I almost cried everything.
I promise you, it was worth it. When we're not recording, I'll tell you the spoiler moment that made me cry.
There is a worthwhile moment in this entire first volume that feels earned and gratifying, and something that you wanted to see happen, and that made it worthwhile, because not everything gets resolved, right? Like there's a lot of still
got 2
groundwork
episodes.
that needs to. We still got 2 long ass episodes to go. So and that's the real thing to really understand, is that about, I think in terms of volume 1, is just that it is building towards something, that it is giving it a sense of closure. And while they're trying to kind of wrap certain things up, and everyone's kind of dispersed, it does have some sort of a path, and it's going to be gratifying to see moments start lining up as we get towards the end here.
All right. Well, listen, as afraid as I am to do it, guys, I think we're going to need to go to a dark place and bring up maybe some things that didn't work with for us with season 4, part 1. Kevin, why don't you kick us off?
I mean, we did sort of cover it earlier in the show, but it really does come down to, it's not even so much that I have a problem with the fact that this is 8.5, 9 hours long. It's that even if you look at episode 7, the last 20, 25 minutes are devoted to one particular strand of the story. And I think I figured out what they were building towards within 5 minutes. It didn't need to take 20, 25 minutes. And so if you are going to have all of this time for the show, why linger on things when you could sort of spread out the time and spread out the stories? And so it just felt like certain elements got a little bit rushed to give more time to others, and I just would have rather seen that spread out, because there's, just before our sort of climax of episode 7, there's a great old school Stranger Things sort of a bit of storytelling that involves a light bright. That's all I'll say. And that was such a fun, rewarding moment, because it was this, it harkens back to that first season a lot, and that sort of adventure and curiosity and discovery that we really got in that first season. And it was so great that the 7 episodes built up to this moment with the people that it involves. And then you go to the climax, and it just felt really overly long and beleaguered. And the part of the story that the character that it focuses around, that whole story for the last 3 or 4 episodes just felt like it was spinning its wheels, not really moving forward anywhere. And every time you'd take a step forward, you'd take 2 back. And so I just, again, I have so many more positive things to say about the show, but if I am going to nitpick, it is that I'm just not sure they needed that much time to tell the story they're telling, because it just cheapens other stuff when you're lingering too long on certain elements.
If I was going to nitpick at anything, it would be about pacing, because I do think some episodes were paced really, really well, as you called out, Nate. But I do think some episodes were very filler. Small amounts of information were kind of revealed, or stories only moved very little in certain episodes. That being said, it is entirely gratifying to see how all of these branches sort of intersect into one central story and one central theme that completely unravels itself over the course of the 7 episodes, which really just in the end highlights how all of these narratives are kind of like part of a hive mind. They're all interconnected, and they're telling a bigger story. So while we might be following these other branches, they're all intersecting and coming together to tell a bigger story.
It'll be interesting to see how, people's feelings on the pacing, whether it be, fatigue or just not focusing on the right spots. It'll be interesting to see if after these next final 2 episodes, if that affects it in any way, just from a standpoint of, as we've been sort of talking about, like payoffs and things like that. But I think some of those episodes have a slightly slower pace, especially for one of the groups in particular. But honestly, I was so engaged each episode, it didn't bother me enough.
I was hooked.
And it made me only want to see them succeed even more. So any times where it felt where I was kind of like, oh, they're not going forward, or just go forward, but then it kind of ramped it up for me to feel like there was more pressure, and it made it a little bit more exciting for me. But I can totally understand how, for some people, it can just sort of feel like, all right, let's keep going. Let's move on to the next thing, which I'm super stoked to do. Speaking of moving on to the next thing, let's get to our final thoughts for this Stranger Things Season 4 Part 1 review, spoiler-free review. Listen, we are in the final chapter of our campaign to defeat the level 36 Dark Wizard, and he's got our heroes surrounded. So I want to know, what are your final thoughts and your score on a scale of 1 to 5 D20s. Kevin, I'll get you to kick us off.
I got to say, I absolutely loved Part 1 here. I think it may go down. Obviously, we have to wait till July to see Part 2 and the last little bit here, but it may go down as my favorite season of Stranger Things, just because, as I mentioned towards the top of the program, it differentiates itself from the earlier 3 seasons, which again were all unique and all different, but kind of followed a similar pattern. Here, we're instantly thrown into a completely new formula. They've shaken things up entirely, and I think that was just what this show needed to stay fresh, to stay fun, to stay exciting, and to keep us on our toes. I didn't find myself guessing what was going to happen nearly as easily or at all within this season. And I think the introduction of several new characters that bring a little light and fun to the scenario really helps balance the sort of really traumatic and terrible things that are happening to some of our beloved characters. And I think that's where the brothers really, really succeed here, is finding that perfect balance. It never gets too harrowing, too scary, too anything before it finds some levity to sort of balance it out. And it's just this really nice ebbing, flowing wave throughout this whole season. And even my complaints about, focusing time on certain characters versus others, it didn't affect my experience and my enjoyment of the show. I just wish it had been done slightly differently. That's really all it is. And so, hopefully in the Part 2, we do get to see a bit more screen time with some of the characters we're familiar with here, because they're on these journeys that deserve fulfilling, satisfying endings as well as the others. And so, I think we kind of almost have wrapped up some of the stories by the end of episode 7, which just opens the door to focus on some other stories. And in that case, just like a lot of the show balancing between the light and dark tones, maybe the stories all sort of find a balance by the end of the 9 episodes, where everything has been satisfactorily drawn out to a fitting and deserving conclusion. So again, top-notch stuff here. Everyone brings their A game in every department, from behind the camera to in front of it, and I thoroughly enjoyed this. So I'm going to give this a solid 4.6 out of 5 on a D20.
Nice. Alrighty. Justin, how about yourself?
Yeah, overall, I enjoyed this season 4, volume 1. It sets up volume 2 really well by answering questions, and obviously by the end of it, leaving some things in the air, which I appreciate. From the get-go, I was hooked. I really wanted to unravel the mystery and learn more as to what was going on, and this first volume served that. As we were mentioning, over the course of the 7 episodes, there are several branches of stories that are being told and interwoven, and some find a way of connecting over the 7 episodes, while others seem a bit far off in other ways, and I think we'll have a larger role in volume 2. But what I really enjoyed is seeing and understanding more of just the background of how things came to be. So this was great. It really felt good to be back in the weird of the Upside Down, seeing these characters again together, being introduced to new characters as we were mentioning. It's funny, the show feeds off of the nostalgia of the 80s, and that's kind of how it got its vibe going, if you will. And now when we come back to Stranger Things after 3 seasons, coming in here to season 4, it itself is just feels nostalgic, from the horror vibes, the synth score. It feels so familiar to be jumping back into this whole series and just being immersed in it. So this was a lot of fun. I'm very excited. I am intrigued that volume 2 is just 2 long ass episodes. I think that is a bit strange. I think there are people that also think that that's a bit strange, but that being said, I can appreciate, based on the production value that is very clear in these 7 episodes, that probably plays a part as to why those episodes are long, and they're probably in post-production hell. But all this to say, I think this was a great outing for season 4, volume 1, and I'm giving this a 4.5 out of 5 D20s.
Nice. All right, man. Yeah, I think just like you were saying there, I love that we've gotten to the point with this show, now we're in season 4, that it can be referencing itself, right? That it has that self-referential humor at times, and
it's the nostalgia. It's so funny. Like, it's like you're like, oh, that's so Stranger Things.
Yeah, that's so Stranger Things season 1, or you get a lot of those
exactly,
sort of callbacks, and I think this is such a delightful summer treat to get back to these characters, and I think honestly, for me, every aspect of this show seems elevated and just perfectly captured. The show is more action-packed, it's scarier, it's more gruesome, and it's got more fist-pumping, like, get hype moments than ever before. And it feels like we're on a really good trajectory to see how it all wraps up. But Justin, like you were saying, I love that it also gives us a really focused, good amount of background as well, to see how we've gotten here, and how we even got to where we were in season 1. I think the show is really focused on where it's going, and I think it does remain really tight knit in terms of the structure of the story, bouncing between each group, and it still feels. It still feels small, but bigger than we've ever had before, because of the sort of
contained.
What it is. Yeah, but what it is they're actually highlighting and bringing up from below the surface feels really special, and it just feels like, okay, we're coming to a close with this show. And I think the incredible performances by the returning cast, the new cast that just you instantly fall in love with. I'm still thinking about how hilarious Argyle is. And I think the music is probably my favorite it's ever been, ever in Stranger Things. I want to own the Mondo vinyl so bad. This is everything you love about Stranger Things and even more, without feeling overwhelming. So I'm going to be rolling a death blow right now. It's a critical hit, you guys. Stranger Things Season 4 Part 1 is going to get 5 out of 5 D20s from me, my guys. 5 out of 5 D20s. I think it's going to be the best Stranger Things ever. I don't think season 5 can touch it. I don't know. We'll see. But listen, that is it for this review. We hope you enjoyed this trip back to Hawkins and this review for Netflix's Stranger Things Season 4 Part 1. And if you did, make sure to subscribe to us wherever you like to listen to podcasts. And if you want to write into the show with your thoughts on Stranger Things, or even your theories for where you think the show is going to go in Part 2, well, let me just use my radio to reach my good friend Justin, to let you know how you can reach us. Justin, come in. Justin, do you copy?
Copy. They can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. Or they can reach out to us on Twitter at GeekcentricYT, or on Instagram at wearegeekcentric. Over and out.
Copy that. You were breaking up a little, but I think we got it. Thank you. All right. Well, keep in mind, we also have a ton of other great episodes covering the latest in movies and TV shows and games, including our spoiler-free review for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. We also have our interview up with director Sam Raimi and writer Michael Waldron from that movie, which Kevin and Justin did excellently. So definitely check that out, both on our YouTube as well as on our pod. Sorry. So definitely check that out, whether it be through our podcasts or on YouTube, actually. And we also have our spoiler-free review for Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, which is a really, really great release that you need to check out as well. Plus, we recently wrapped our most recent Watch Club for Moon Knight, with our next one not too far away, with Obi-Wan coming real soon. We also have our weekly This Week in Geek episodes every single Wednesday, where we bring you the latest news and trailers, and reactions to those trailers, with our latest episode where Kevin and we fell in love with a giant green woman, didn't we, Kevin?
Oh, you better believe it, bud.
And also, Kevin complimented my ass. So if you want to listen to that, definitely go check out This Week in Geek. We do those every single Wednesday, as I said. So go give those episodes a listen and leave us a 5-star review if you don't mind. And finally, I know this is a lot, but listen, if you're listening to this on the day it comes out, which is May 23rd, well, you're going to need to hop on your bikes and race faster than Will Byers' skinny, pale, white little legs to get over to our Twitter and our Instagram, where you can like and comment on our Bob's Burgers post with your favorite Toronto burger joint for a chance to win 2 tickets to see the Bob's Burgers movie early on the 25th. That's in 2 days in sunny downtown Toronto, courtesy of our friends over at Disney Studios Canada. So again, slap your buns together while racing to our Twitter at Geekcentric YT, or you can tap your saucy fingers on that Instagram at We Are Geekcentric to submit your entry. We'll have all the links in the show notes, but I warn you, your time has come, as this is the last day that you can enter.
I'm seeing lots of Burger Priest entries so far. I want to see some out of the box ideas here. Nate and I need some suggestions to check out when we're downtown. Let's go, people.
Please. I need. Burger Priest is fantastic. I need some more diverse. Give me some more diverse burger joints. But all right, half orc barbarian Kevin and high elf paladin Justin, thank you so much for joining me for today's episode. And as we say, love ya.
Get home safe, guys.
Peace.